Entrepreneur Accelerator program locally here. And the number one thing they all said was, I just need more time. So that's why it's so important to have these things in place. Because if you don't take control of your time, someone else is going to take control of it for you. So prioritizing what's important and what's not important. If I do nothing with this in 10 minutes, is it going to get better or is it going to get worse? You need to triage the use of your time, or else people will steal your time all the time. Stop, look back, evaluate, and reward yourself for all the things you did achieve. Doing that bit extra. And that helps you stand out above and beyond everybody else. You've mud mapped, you've got everything planned out, you know what you're doing, you know what your goals are for 1, 3, 5, 10 years. And now you come back into just focusing right in on the now. And people go, next year, man, I can't even think of what I'm doing next week or next month. Well, it's time. It's time to look at that. All right, everyone. Well, welcome to System 1357 and our Business Accelerator. Today, we are going to talk about time management. And it's the one thing that you don't get any more of, right? It's the one thing that's a constant, no matter who you are or what business you're in. It's the one thing. You know, everyone gets the same 7 days a week and 1,440 minutes a day and 365 days a year. So what are some of the techniques that you can use to be able to work smarter rather than harder? Because whether you like it or not, you know, 2010 happened, 2020 happened, and 2030 is going to happen. And what we need to do is work out how we can work effectively with our time management so we can achieve, like I said, twice as much in half the time. And that's what we're going to cover today. And today's going to be an interactive session. And we're going to talk about 7 ways that I used personally to manage time. And they're sort of unique. And I'll go into them each in detail at a helicopter view. So that way you can get your head around. And if you've got your own workbooks, by all means, make your own notes and your own sheets, and we can have a bit of a play with it. So it won't be interactive in the sense that we'll go through that process today. It'll be something that you can write down, make all your notes, and go away afterwards and try and implement some of these things for yourself. So the first technique that I use, and it's one that I adapted really early, was school teacher hours. I'll go into a bit more detail with that, but school teacher hours. It's a really simple way to remember it because we all went through school. So it's a really simple way to break things down. The next thing is mud maps and how we actually plan and predict our future as best we can, but without having to be too specific, you know, about business planning. Then we go into the 1,440, which is how many minutes you get a day. Then I go into the rule of 10, and the rule of 10 is about triaging and working out, you know, how to prioritize things on a day-to-day basis. Then we move into smarter, which is about SMART goals, but also the ER at the end of smarter. Then we do what I call Xtra, which is extra mile stuff, doing the extra, the bit extra with effective use of time. And the last one is about the one turn. And that's a bit of a sporting analogy, which I'll show you how that works and how you can use it to your advantage as well. So what I'll do at first is start talking about how you use school teacher hours. So with 7 subjects, I've only got about 3 minutes a subject, but by all means, like I said, put a question in the chat room and I'll answer it for you. So this is going to be a helicopter view. Now, all around the world, school teacher hours work same, but different. So in Australia, we have 5 days of school. They sort of go 9 till 3, and everything's broken up into, you know, I'll go high school. So they're broken up into sessions. So they'll do an hour on English, they'll do an hour on maths, then they'll have recess, then they do an hour on science or an hour on something else. And then Mondays, that routine, Tuesdays, that routine, Wednesdays, half a day bit school and half a day sport, you know, and every school does it differently, but there's sort of like 4.5 days school and half a day sport, 5 days a week, 9 till 3. And in Australia, we also do it in terms of 4 10-week terms. So they have 10 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 10 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So it's a fairly cool system when you think about it, right? So when I get into school teacher hours, what I'm talking about is breaking things into terms and breaking things into manageable blocks. So if we micro it down into a day-to-day basis, when you get up every day and go, what do I need to do today? What's my priorities? You can make a list if you want to, but break your day down into those subjects. It's an hour for email, or it's an hour for social media. It's an hour for phone calls, okay? You can do 2 hours if you want. You can do the morning if you want to. They're your terms. You know, lucky enough as a student or even as a teacher, you get given your curriculum. You get told what you're going to do in this hour, what you're going to do in that hour, and it's fixed for the term. In fact, it's probably fixed for the year. But, in business, you have the ability to be able to create your own subjects, your own electives, your own terms, your own sessions, your own half days, your own sport day. So if you want to do Friday afternoon or Wednesday afternoon or Monday afternoon as your golf day or your tennis day or your surfing day, your gym day, your bike riding day, you can do that because you're in business, right? So we don't get the benefit in business of being able to have terms given to us. Sometimes we get pushed around by clients. So let's reverse that. Let's reverse it so you can take control of your time and turn things into your own school teacher hours. So your own blocks, your own terms, what you're going to do. Now we're talking day, week, terms, and year. So you can actually do that. So that's school teacher hours. And, work it how you like. The next one is mud mapping, which leads us into the next thing. So school teacher hours, when you look at that, if you get out a mud map, so let me go to the more advanced sort of way of looking at a mud map, but it'd be called a business plan. So if you had a proper business plan, you'd have all these strategies in place, you'd have all your goals in place, you'd have all those things. But sometimes people really struggle with getting at that, but it's not right, or it's not correct, or it's not. Well, that's okay. It doesn't have to be. You can brain dump all your ideas on a mud map for this year. Okay, so I always had my notebooks out and I'd be mud mapping out finances. I'd be mud mapping out my goals. I'd be mud mapping out what the year looks like, what next year looks like, what the year after might look like if everything's successful, or what's an exit strategy. If that doesn't work, what else am I going to pivot to? And I called it a mud map because it allowed me to brain dump without having to be too neat or too specific or too precise. So it allowed me to vision things in the future in a way that doesn't put any pressure on me. So if you go do an MBA, I'm sure they make sure your business plans are nice. I'm sure they make sure your business plans are pretty formal and organized. But if you get used to doing things in a mud map and not worrying about the exactness of it and being able to be flexible and fluid with that, that also allows you, if you're mud mapping, to continually reinvent your mud map and pivot and change as you need to. So it's allowing you to take control of that time without feeling guilty that you didn't stick to the plan. You didn't stick to the goal, so it allows you to pivot and change and be flexible with that mud map. And I put up a picture, which I can share in the show notes if people want, but I put up a picture of a tentative schedule for 2022 that I shared in a session the other day. And I did a workshop and how we mud mapped out 2022 and putting in your known knowns and things like that. And what you get left with, believe it or not, is like the first one I spoke about, which is your school teacher hours. So if you put that down, it actually allows you to do that. So the next one is 1440. Now that's how many minutes you get a day. So the beautiful thing about being a business owner and being an entrepreneur is you can work anytime you like. You can work 7 days a week. You can work at 3 o'clock in the morning. You can work at 11 o'clock at night. You actually get 1440 minutes a day to take control of. The downside is you never get them back. So you've got to be really effective in how you prioritize your time. But there is 1440 minutes a day. Whenever someone asks me, Scotty, I'm thinking about getting into business, what do you think? I always say, yeah. Because the beautiful thing about getting into business is if you're worth it and you can prove it, you'll get paid it. And there's no one telling you can only work this many hours a week. There's no one telling you that, it's a 38-hour week and you get 48 weeks a year. Well, let's round things off. You get 40 hours a week for 50 weeks a year to work. And that's the maximum they're going to pay you. So that's 2,000 hours a year. And that's it. So if we do the standard Australian working year, it's actually only about 1,880 hours a year. So if you get a job that lets you only do that, well, that's all you're ever going to make. So the beautiful thing about being in business is you get 1,440 minutes a day. So when you're looking at your terms and you're looking at your mud maps, you've actually got all day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to maximize, as well as take off if you want to be balanced. Which leads me to the next thing. So when you're trying to look at those 1,440 minutes, your mud maps, your school teacher hours, the rule of 10 is a really cool one. So the rule of 10 is about triaging. So how clients push you around, right? You get up every day and you want to do something and then an email comes in or a message comes in and all of a sudden you're off on a tangent. And that happens all the time, right? So the rule of 10 is about triaging. So prioritizing what's important and what's not important. So there's the urgent and important. There's the not urgent, not important. You're all doing it with your phones nowadays, right? A phone comes in, the call's on the screen, you see the number and you go, I don't know that number. I'll let it go through to the keeper, right? I'll let it go through to message bank. Well, that's a form of triaging. And the triaging on the rule of 10 is if I do nothing in 10 minutes or 10 days, 10 hours, 10 weeks, 10 months, whatever it is, if I do nothing with this in 10 minutes, is it going to get better or is it going to get worse? Or is it just going to be the same? Like, is it really important? Can that call wait 10 more minutes while I'm prioritizing something else? Can that call wait 10 hours while I'm prioritizing something else? Can I do that message in 10 days? It's not going to matter. What's going to happen if I do or don't do something in the rule of 10? So really simple, you need to triage the use of your time, or else people will steal your time all the time. And time stealing on social media is one of the big ones. Although it's fun, it's exciting, it's rewarding, it's also a time stealer. So you need to triage whether spending that time or doing that post or interacting is really important right now. Can I wait and just spend a block or a school teacher hour on that later on in the day? And that's how you maximize your time. So you get in and you can focus right on that. So that's the rule of 10. So far, school teacher hours, mud maps, 1,440 and the rule of 10. The SMART goals. So a lot of that also has depending on how you do your SMART goals. And I like the ER on the SMART goals too. So with the SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time bound. So once you know what you want to achieve, all that ties back into how you do your school teacher hours, your terms. It ties into how you do your mud maps towards what you want to achieve. It ties into how you use your time effectively and how you triage. SMART goals. And if everyone knows about goals, right? It's not something that's new anymore or fancy. And most people are goal orientated, especially if you're in business. You've got some goals, you've got some things you want to achieve. So, having goals itself is not the secret sauce anymore because everybody's doing goals. But what happens is the ER. And the ER is evaluate and reward. So you need your evaluation of your goals as you go, which once again ties into the first four things. So if you've got goals, you need to stop sometimes, evaluate and go too big, too small, pivot, change, but it may not change the goal itself, like your lifelong goals, where you want to be in 10 years, but it may change what you do on that day-to-day basis to fit in. And then there's also the rewards, the recognition, the R. So once you achieve some of your goals, stop, celebrate with some friends, celebrate with your wife, give yourself a little high five, whatever it is, on a day-to-day basis or a week-to basis or a yearly basis. Stop, look back, evaluate and reward yourself for all the things you did achieve. And even if they weren't goals, the rewards of what you achieve at the end of the year, because sometimes you achieve things you never even set out to achieve. You get this client you never saw coming. You get this result you never saw coming from somewhere. So the R is about the recognition of results that you get along the way. And it's important to stop and look at that. And a lot of people forget about the small rewards along the way for all the small goals you achieve. So that's really important because that's what helps you keep achieving more goals. The Xtra is pretty self-explanatory. It's about going the extra mile. So once again, if you've got everything lined up, you've got everything that you want to achieve, and often it's that one little bit extra, that 1% more that you put into the things that you want to do. So in sales, we called it one more call. So every day we'd be out working and knocking on doors, and we'd stop at the end of the day and go, okay, I'm finished, I'm buggered. Do one more call. And it's amazing how that turned into a sale or a result. Don't know where it came from. I don't know why, but it's something to do with that attitude of the extra mile. Something to do with that attitude of just doing that bit extra. And that helps you stand out above and beyond everybody else. You think about it in sport. So what's the extra mile in sport? You're in sport, you're given your season, you get given your school teacher hours, you're given your everything, you're on and off games, you get given all those things in sport. But what really helps people succeed in sport is that bit extra they do around their training, around their diet, around those extra things. So becoming an extra mile, it doesn't also mean putting in the extra time. Well, it also means putting in the extra focus, putting in that extra commitment, really laser focused on that, what's really important right now, and then doing the extra things, like the extraordinary things that everyone else is doing. Don't be ordinary, just do those bit extra. Like you plus 1% is a lot. you plus 1% every day, year in, year out over 10 years is a massive difference. So become an extra miler. And the last one is the one turn. So the one turn is all about focusing. So like I said to you before, so if you've got all these things lined up, you know, with all the things in surfing that I can set goals for, so this is where this come from, right? So from coaching kids in surfing, you know, it's all good to set the goal to win a competition. It's all good to set these goals. But, you know, when you go surfing, the only thing you can focus on right here and now is the now. So it's that one turn, that one wave, and that one heat at a time. You progress, and all of a sudden you're in the final, and all of a sudden you get a chance to win the competition. And if you use football as an analogy, it's that one pass. It's that one set of 6. It's that one game at a time. It's the same thing. Call it like you will. You know, every single sport person has to come right back into that micro of focusing in on the now. So whenever you're doing something, you focus in on the now, as opposed to you've done all your big picture stuff. You've mud mapped, you've got everything planned out. You know what you're doing. You know what your goals are for 1, 3, 5, 10 years. And now you come back into just focusing right in on the now. Okay. So that is the most important part of the piece. And a lot of people do that first. And I'm okay with that if you focus on the now. But if you haven't done the other steps, the other 6 things, guess what? You're focusing on now, but there's no intent. There's no drive for or direction. So you've got to have all those other things in place, your mud maps, your goals, to actually allow yourself to focus on that one turn and knowing which waves to take, knowing which turn to do to get the results that you need. And that's why that's so important, is the focusing in on the now. So going back to it, once again, school teacher hours is focus on your terms, your blocks, you know, micro it down into a day, a week, into those little blocks of work that you can do. And if you break it over a year, you can do your own school terms. It could be a 6-month school term that you do business for, and then maybe 3 months off if you want to, because it's your business, and then maybe back to work for the last 3 months. They're your terms. You get to call the shots. No one's telling you how to make your terms. Put that into your mud map for this year, your mud map for this week, the mud map for next year, and mud map for the next 3 years. What does everything look like? What's the potential? What's it look like financially? What's it look like personally? What's it look like business-wise? If I do this, if I do that, what's all that look like? So once again, mud mapping really works because it brain dumps all your knowledge and experience that you want to achieve, all your goals, and you map them all out. Call it a business plan if you like, but by calling it a mud map, it allows you just to not get too focused on that it's neat or perfect or right. It allows you just to put down what you think. Once again, the 1440, you get 7 days a week, 1,440 minutes a day. Use them all, you know, use them personally, use them family, use them socially, use them business, use them all. There's 1,440 minutes a day. The rule of 10, triage, learn to go what's important, what's not important. You know, if I do something in the next 10 minutes, will it make a big impact or not? 10 hours, can it wait? You know, what is it? Smarter goals, evaluate reward, be an extra miler, and focus on the now. Whatever it is you choose to do in all those situations, you still come back down to breaking in on the now. So that's a crash course. I could talk on each one of those for an hour just on their own. I did a workshop the other day where we actually did a physical exercise of creating that mud map. And we actually sat down and we mapped out what that looked like. And people actually, was hard for some people to do because we did it for next year. And people go, next year, man, I can't even think of what I'm doing next week or next month. Well, it's time. It's time to look at that. Because, you know, if you don't take control of your time, someone else will. Someone else will take it off you. Someone else will take your attention away to what they want. So make sure you take control of your time. And that's what it's all about. So as far as those 7 go, what's everyone's thinking on that? Anything new in there?
Well, I have to say, you know, I've heard this before, Scotty, so it's always good to hear it again. And yeah, my mindset's a little bit different now. And so it actually got me thinking. And one of the things that you mentioned, you know, about prioritizing the time, And that's an exercise that I'm currently doing, especially with the work that I do on social media, because I'm not just sitting there and screwing around on social media. I'm actually doing networking and stuff, but it does take a big chunk of my time. And I have to be looking at the level of effort versus the result and reward that I'm getting from that. So that's currently something that I'm doing.
Yeah, cool. And how does that, I mean, have you got a mud map and a plan for that for next year, how it's going to look and how it's going to work?
No, not yet, because I'm still finalizing what it is I'm going to actually be focusing on.
Yeah,
So,
cool. Well, that's part of the process, right? So when it gets
Mhm.
to that evaluate and rewards, it's part of the process. It's part of that.
Exactly.
Well, I thought this was going to work, but it's not. So there's no, I'm evaluating it. Well, it's not a smart goal. It's can that thing, start again,
Exactly.
pivot, change.
Exactly.
Here's the thing though, Peter, like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. But, as you're doing what you're doing, my definition of insanity is people doing the same thing everyone else is doing and expecting a better result.
It's good. Yeah. It's a good way to look at it.
So what are you doing to be different, right? And you've got your 6 questions in 7 minutes, which is great. And it's a podcast. It's a way of doing a different kind of podcast or an interview, and you do it live. It's on YouTube. So it's not just a voice one. It's actually a video one as well. But, what are you doing differently? So, and that's the evaluation and rewards, reward versus effort. And, you want to be getting maximum return on your time.
Right.
100%.
And that's where I'm currently looking at my different options.
Yeah. Which is perfect. Excellent. And, the reality is in time management, you are constantly doing it. And this is why it's important to call it a mud map. It's critical to call it a mud map, not a business plan. It's a mud map. You can be flexible. You can be fluid. You can change it next week, tomorrow, or stick to it for the next year. It's okay. But typically what's going to happen is you're going to create a mud map and you're going to find some of the things aren't going to work. And some of the things are. You're going to want to do more of other things. Okay, scribble a new mud map. Okay, this is working. I'm going to do more of this and mud map it. So because it's not something that's set in stone, you have the complete flexibility over how you're going to mud map that out.
Right.
It's a roadmap, but it can be muddy. It can be dirty. It can be just scribble. It can be in your own language. If you want to do it on a vision board, go for it. But the point is you can just be whatever your plan is. So it sort of suits my style, by the way, Peter, because I'm not really the neatest kind of guy. If you saw my desk, it's an organized mess.
Well, the water background is so nice and clear, and you got the nice white shirt going on and stuff. So you're showing a great image right there.
Yeah, well, I like the flow of the ocean, right? Let's just roll with it. Everything comes in waves and sets. Good and bad, good weather, bad weather. You can't have surf without bad weather either, right? So, when the good weather comes, there's no surf after it. We need bad weather to make surf. Mm-hmm. So the ocean's not bad. So, but yeah, as far as those 7 ways to go managing time, any other questions on that you'd like to know about or talk about? If not, we can go through a quick exercise on it as well. So.
I've only got a comment, Scotty. I think as entrepreneurs, the 7 points are really important. It helps you become a little bit more organised, disciplined, and focused to where you want to go. And the idea of that mind maps, it's like action planning. I think, it's just the idea where you can constantly evaluate, look at it, reflect, and then kind of redevelop it as you go along to meet your purpose. So I think they are great points.
Yeah, cool. And you are right, as an entrepreneur. See, this is the beautiful thing about the sporting system is they get given, or the school system, they get given their seasons, they get given their terms, they get given their home and away games. Hell, they even get given their rewards. They get given everything. All they've got to do is be the best athlete or the best student they can be, right? Well, we don't get that as an entrepreneur. You've sat down one day, you've had your coffee, moment where you've gone, I think this is a good idea. And it's whatever it is. I'm going to create this business doing A, B, or C. Well, the next thing that needs to happen is you need to create your own season, your own game plan. And that's where most people get scared of it. They think, what do I need to do? How do I do it? Gee, I'm running out of time. I've just done an entrepreneur accelerator program locally here. And the number one thing they all said was I just need more time. They all said they needed more time. So time duplication is something that's so important, but that's for another day or another subject, or go watch the videos on it. I've got some videos about time duplication already done, but they all said they wanted more time. Now they've actually already got the same amount of time this year that they had last year. They have the same time next year that they have this year. See what the secret sauce is? Those 7 ways you were talking about, Peter. Exactly. As an entrepreneur, harnessing that time, managing those key activities in a structured way that suits you to achieve all your goals. So you're spot on, Peter. As an entrepreneur, the game changes. As an employee, you get told what hours you work. All right, you're 9 to 5, or you're 8 to 4, or you're 7 to 3. It's 5 days a week. That's it. That's you. There's your hole. There's your box. You can't go out of that box. My son was working for the council, right? They were not allowed to work a minute over because the local government says you're only going to get paid for 38 hours a week. You cannot do any more than that, which was sort of cool if you just want to have a cushy job for the rest of your life. But there's no entrepreneurialism in that. If you're in business, it's because you want more. It's because you want to achieve better than the average. You want the extraordinary things. And to do that, 100% Peter, you create your own season. And there's 7 easy ways to do it. 7 easy ways that you all can use. So, and Randy, good to have you back. You must have a technical issue, hey?
I forgot that I had another call scheduled. I haven't figured out how to split myself in 2. It was frustrating because I wanted to hear those 7 points. So are we going to be able to get access to this recording?
If all the recording came out good, 100%.
Rock and roll.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. You'll
the same 7 points in some of your videos too, right?
Mate, it's the same 7 points. And you know, the reality is, here's the good thing. So I'm glad you raised that. So when I talk about all these same things, right, it's also about, it's also about being able to use these same 7 techniques in business, which we're talking about. You actually use the same 7 techniques with clients. So when you get a client, create the school teacher hours. What are we doing? Create the mud map. Where are we going? Look at the 1,440 minutes a day. What time suits them? What time suits you? What's the rule of 10? What's important right now? What's the SMART goals? Let's evaluate and reward these things. What's the extra mile? What's my under promise, over deliver? What's the extra that I'm going to do? What's important right now? 7 simple ways to look at every sale you get, every client you get. The same 7 systems work. Then also, let's look at leadership. So if I've got a team of people or I've got suppliers, it's the same thing. It's the same, just look at how, so I'm glad you raised it, Randy, because it is exactly right. You can use these same 7 in sales, leadership, and business development. It 100% works for all of them.
Think about it. You can use it at home. You can use it in your family. You can use it in all kinds, in nearly every situation you find yourself in.
Yeah, 100%. And if Feny's just asked a question, what is your rule of thumb for how much time blocked out for planning or mud mapping? Well, you know what? The good news is, because it's a mud map, sometimes those things I don't change for a while, and other times it didn't work. A week later, I'm changing things. So I'll just share with a screen here, and I'll show you the mud map, like a yearly mud map as an idea. So that's a mud map. So how often does that change? You can change that whenever you like. So that's the 2022, quarter by quarter by quarter. So what I suggest you do with here is you put in your known knowns. Like, for example, an easy one with your known knowns is April's always got Easter in it. But when's your anniversary? When's your kids' birthdays? When do you typically go to the snow or your camping holiday with friends? What are some of the things that affect your business? If you're an accountant, you've got certain times a year where financial things need to be done. But you can map out these quarterly schedules, tentative schedules. You can map all these out. So how often does it change? Whenever you want. So this is one example, but this is another example of exactly the same thing, Effendi. So here's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I've got my AM, PM. I can break this down as much as I like. So this tentative schedule could be something that maps out your week as a general rule of thumb, but it can also be something that you map out and change whenever you like. So as far as how much time you put into mud mapping and making your tentative schedules based around all your goals, it's entirely up to you. But I'm going to suggest it's constant. And that's the beautiful thing about, it is called a tentative schedule. It's a business plan, but it's a tentative schedule. It's a mud map. So you can brain dump and put in as much time as you like. But I'm going to suggest that it only has to be good enough. So it's not something that, if you're starting to get highlighters and make it really pretty and lock it all in and all sorts of things, it's probably too much. It's supposed to be a mud map. It's supposed to be a brain dump where you simply put down, if this happens, that happens, I'm going to try this, I'm going to have a go at that, I'm going to put these into blocks, blah, 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 blah. Whether it's day, week, month, quarter, year, whatever it is, you could do a 5-year mud map. Okay, so if I do A, B, C, in 5 years' time, I'm going to be this old. I want to achieve these things. I'm going to invest in a property. I'm going to pay off my house this period. I'm going to invest in a property that period. I'll buy another thing there. Whatever it is, you can mud map these things as much as you like. And it should be something that just flows out. So I'm going to suggest, as far as how much time blocked out for planning, it's something that's a constant. But because the beautiful word there is mud mapping, Effendi, is you can just keep it simple, brain dump. It's not, it should be enough you could share with other people, but it doesn't have to be presented to other people if you really wanted to. So it's not a presentation, it's just your own, this is what I think the year will look like. This is what I'd like my week to look like. This is what's important to me at the moment in my mud map. So, and you can have 2 or 3 going at once. You can have personal goals and you can have business goals. You can have different goals going at the same time. So different tentative schedules to achieve different things. So that's a good question. How much time should you spend on planning? Well, proper planning, prevents possible poor performance. We know that. But so if you're not spending any time, you need to start setting aside some time, but only enough time. And it doesn't matter how often you do it. I would schedule every quarter though, just so you know. Every quarter I would sit down, I would spend a week with my family somewhere. It was always scheduled around, managing time and spending time with my family. And I'd break away from the office for a week, sometimes 2. And during that process, Effendi, by the time I went back to the office after that 2 weeks, I had a new mud map for whatever was in the future. So all the old mud maps were gone and all the new mud maps were in place, around finances, business planning and things like that. I constantly did it. I broke away from the office. So no phone calls, no interruptions, just sit down. Sometimes it was with a beer or a coffee first thing in the morning, depending on what time of day it was, and just get my pen out and start scribbling ideas, start brain dumping and what it looks like, around the finances of the company, if I grow the team of the company, what clients I need, what training sessions we're going to do, where's this all fit in? And, there's some known knowns that never change. So, for example, in the real estate business, we had the award season. So February and August was always when all the annual awards were or the half annual awards were. So I always knew those 2 months were that. I always knew that April was Easter and Australia Day, Anzac Day. So it's always the same. So I work around those. And when I put in those blocks in that mud map, I then get the bits in the middle where I can be effective on other things, either holidays or business development, whatever it is, those things. So Fendi, mate, it's up to you. But just do it. But don't get too strung up on perfect. It's called a mud map.
My takeaway, if you want to get the full effect of Scotty's lectures, don't leave halfway through.
So it was pretty good. Now I going back to what we talked about before about the importance, how important time is overall. You and I had that quick discussion on LinkedIn too about how time and health are our 2 most precious assets. So this just reinforces the fact that we've got a limited amount of time and we just really need to appreciate it and take advantage of it.
Yeah. And, strive for healthy, wealthy, and wise. Use that time. This isn't all about business, but I like to keep business very simple, easy to use, easy to manage, easy to achieve things. So you're right, Peter, 100% right. So as you're pivoting and changing, working out what that new business model looks like going forward, it's a perfect thing to do, right? It's perfect. And everybody does it. There's nothing unusual about that. Everybody does it. In fact, if you make it part of your DNA, you'll pivot and change all the time, but you'll still be going towards a trajectory of where you want to go. So that's where what's Peter look like in 5 and 10 years time as a mud map, you're still going in that direction because you've defined what it is. But the reality is this might be different nowadays because things are slightly different, but on average, people go through 3 completely different career changes in their life.
Only 3?
Those might be different nowadays, but they say on average 3 different career changes. So maybe nowadays it's more often, maybe it's every 5 years, but I'm talking about 3 distinctly different career changes. They come out of university as an accountant. Next thing they're down with a coffee shop and next they're in the concreting business. 3 different career changes, completely different to each other, right? So on average, people go through that. And each time there was that epiphany, that change, that, this isn't working, or this isn't what I want to do anymore. And they have to start that entire process again of mud mapping out the next 10 years. What's my goals look like? What's going to make me happy? What's going to achieve my balance in life? What's going to help me earn the most amount of money in the least amount of time? Mm-hmm. That's what we're all here for, right? Get our goals the easiest way possible. So and managing time is the one thing that is the secret sauce. The better you are at that, the better you are with everything. And just on that note, I'll finish up. Amazon, the old Jeff, I read something about Jeff, and he's always in his calendar 2 or 3 years in front. And he only lives in his calendar 2 or 3 years in front. So the things that's happening in Amazon today are because the staff and the team he has are putting into place the things that they envisioned 2 or 3 years ago. And he still lives in his calendar in advance. So the stuff that's happening behind the scenes and on a day-to-day basis is easy if you've got that trajectory going forward to where you want to go. So that's why it's so important to have these things in place. Because if you don't take control of your time, someone else is going to take control of it for you. And if you're in business for yourself, the beautiful thing is you can take full control of what you want to achieve. And there were 7 techniques that can help. So thanks everyone for coming, and we'll see you all on the next one.
Thanks, Scotty.
See you guys.
Thank you.